Planning, Symposis Professional University. Warmly welcome you all to the second technical session of day 2 of the International Symposium on Future of Skills in Architecture, Design and Planning, a way forward for better industry and society. I'm elated to announce that the knowledge partner for this international symposium are Urban Village Charitable Trust University and the Institute of Town Planners India, ITPI. I would now like to introduce our next expert speaker, Dr. Architect Anand Khatri sir. He is a professor, architect, researcher, theosophist, healer, and national powerlifter. Sir fills his research with intersemiotic discussions on vernacular poetry, healing, architecture, and planning. Sir is a graduate of architecture from GCA Lucknow in 1993 and a master's in architectural conservation from SBA Delhi in 1996. The founder of Poesis Society of Poetry, he works to bring poetry into daily lives. The founder of the research repository UVCity, Urban Village Charitable Trust, he is working to develop the knowledge of organizing settlements to better people's life. His policy recommendations for urban villages were accepted for implementation in G20 T20 2022, and the communique he edited was received in G20 U20 Y20 2023. Anand sir works full-time at AIPSAP as a professor, the head of the research cell and the academic coordinator. Welcome, sir. Now I request you to deliver your address.
I'm very happy to be with you all today afternoon, and I must tell you that we need to stitch together. There have been very diverse discussions since today morning, and let us put together what has been talked by Jerry, what has been talked by, especially by Krishnamurti, and what I am going to talk. I am very appreciative of thoughts which remain confined within a sphere. So you must understand that for a thought to be complete, it has to be complete in itself with a boundary. And when it spills the boundary, then different kind of questions start falling into the system of questioning, then the thought disintegrates. So please understand that the discussion that we are going to enter now on UVCT is about people and how architecture is far, far, far away from impacting the lives of people. Jerry talked about the level of urbanization in our country and how the urbanization speed is increasing, right? But how is this urbanization happening? Urbanization is connected to economics also. And so are you and I. We are all parts of economic chains. हम सबके सब लोग जो है एक इकोनॉमिक चेन का हिस्सा हैं. आपके माँ बाप आपको जब पढ़ने के लिए भेजते हैं तो किस इच्छा से भेजते हैं? What is the aspiration that you carry when you get into the college? To be successful, to be practicing successfully as architects, right? And how do you define success? Success is defined through what you achieve in terms of an exchange of your services. And that is why you, your system, your education, and even every thinking pattern that is surrounding you, your graduation के बाद job में कितना salary मिल रहा है, everything is pushing you towards serving those who are in the chain of economics. As a result of which, what happens? Those who are not in the chain of economics are left out. But when you think about architecture, जब तुम architecture के बारे में सोचते हो, तो architects की responsibility क्या है? क्या बिल्डिंग का डोमेन आर्किटेक्ट्स का है? अगर तुम अग्री करते हो कि बिल्डिंग का डोमेन आर्किटेक्ट्स का है, if you agree that the responsibility of architects is to take care of the domain of design or the domain of building or the domain of construction, then you must understand that the service that we are giving to the country and to the society by far lacks and requires much more amount of effort. My discussions with NIUA, National Institute of Urban Affairs, and Council of Architecture, both of which are UVCT's knowledge partners, have We have reached a point of agreement that architects must be taught how to take care of informalities. जैसे अर्बन डिजाइन का तुम्हारा स्टूडियो होता है, जिसमें कि तुम अर्बन डिजाइन पढ़ते हो, वैसे ही तुम्हारा informalities का एक स्टूडियो होना चाहिए, where you try and understand how to cater to the masses. Who is the richest man in the country? Economy हमारी country की कहाँ से आ रही है? Why are so many multinationals and so many international organizations looking towards our country? Because we have numbers, right? Throughout the nation and even worldwide, anybody falling sick knows that he has to go to a doctor. Doctors are engaged not just in the city, but even up to the village level. But when you look at your service, and so are lawyers and so many other professions, but when you look at your own profession, or rather my profession, then we are not. We are confined only to the comfort of cities. गांव में किसी को घर रिपेयर करने का जरूरत होता है, या घर को नया बनाने का जरूरत होता है, या बड़ा घर बनाने की जरूरत होती है, तो गांव का कोई आदमी आर्किटेक्ट का नाम भी नहीं जानता है. वो किसी ठेकेदार को बुलाता है, वो किसी मिस्त्री को बुलाता है और कहता है कि मुझे बड़ा घर चाहिए, मेरे पास इफरात में पैसा है, I have unlimited money, but you please do it for me, right? Architects have not expanded their horizon. So, today's discussion from UBCP is to tell you what we are doing, how urban development happened in our country, and how you can participate. I think some of you were also engaged with the UBCP studio in which you did Kiwale, the village Kiwale, which is around here, and some of you studied, or maybe the batch which graduated had studied it last year, I'm not sure. And I have to cite an example which I was talking to some of your faculty here, कि जब किसी को एक छोटा सा 10 रुपए का पेन खरीदना होता है, तो वो पान की दुकान में मिलता है, वो हमारे मॉडर्न रिटेल फॉर्मेट्स में नहीं मिलता है. हमारे मेड्स, ड्राइवर्स, क्लीनर्स, किसी भी तरीके का हेल्प, या कोई भी व्यक्ति who is starting a life afresh in a new city and wants to find affordable housing, or maybe shared housing, or maybe a migrant from a village finds comfort in these areas which are called villages or urban villages. Leave aside understanding them, we don't even understand the typologies that they house. When I was coming to your college, there was a point where it was written, Maidan for rent, right? Now, with all of you put together and me put together, can we define the size and anthropometry of a Maidan? What thinking or what space reduction, or at what point of time, if I reduce that limitless space, does it become a Maidan? चाहे रामलीला मैदान हो, जो कि हर शहर में होता है, चाहे किसी गांव का मैदान हो, मेले का मैदान हो, अगर इनफाइनाइट स्पेस को हम कंस्ट्रिक्ट करना शुरू करें, तब तक जब तक कि वो एक छोटा सा 10 बाय 10 का कोर्टयार्ड नहीं बन जाता है, किस पॉइंट पे, at what point does it become a मैदान, and after what point does it stop becoming a मैदान? We have not explored our indigenous typologies of spaces, our indigenous typologies of construction at all. When you go to these kind of areas, and when you look at the spaces in which these people are living, when you look at their houses, you find it very difficult to put it to paper. Leave aside putting it to paper, you do not understand the shared property lines, because property नीचे अलग-अलग होती है, ऊपर L shape में ये इधर आ जाता है, और इसका property ऐसे जाकर के ऐसे L shape में ऊपर आ जाता है. We don't understand that cross-sectional distinction in the ownerships of properties also. Leave aside the capability to design in this complexity, and henceforth even rasterizing these areas into a tangible plan with open spaces and sizes becomes very difficult. So, when we are trying to address the complexity of this kind of space which does not belong to our format of thinking, क्योंकि हमारे format के बाहर है ना, जो हमारा development authorities का plans होता है, जो plans approve होते हैं, उनमें कोई indigenous typologies हैं जो approve होते हैं. मिट्टी का घर approve होता है? हो ही नहीं सकता है. When you give it to a development authority to approve a मिट्टी का घर, they would not approve because there is no basis. There definitely some work is happening on it. Some people are pushing it, but it's not becoming a mass process. And henceforth, what do we miss on it? we are missing on all vernacular knowledge, all vernacular typologies, all types of houses that connect our villages to urbanization. And that's why when they come into the format of urbanization, what happens? All of them are declared as slums. Nobody, and unless they are poles, unless they are very, very recognized heritage structures, people's heritage is not recognized. जो आम आदमी की विरासत है, उसको पहचानने वाले ना तो शहर है, क्योंकि वो इकोनॉमिक चेन में नहीं पड़ता है, ना ही हम लोग हैं, हमने उसके बारे में पढ़ा ही नहीं, लिखा ही नहीं। आज आप अर्बन विलेजेस को टाइप करिए, तो जो चाइना का सिटी का जिसका एग्जांपल दे रहे थे in a morning lecture, Shenzhen or something like that, वहाँ के अर्बन विलेजेस के पेपर्स निकल करके आते हैं। चाइना का एग्रेडाइजेशन ऑफ प्रॉपर्टीज, जहाँ पे कि प्रॉपर्टीज को मिला करके सामूहिक तौर पे बांट दिया गया हो, उसके एग्जांपल्स निकल करके आते हैं। लेकिन इंडियन अर्बन विलेजेस और विलेजेस के थॉट्स निकल करके ही नहीं आते। I am also working with the Ministry of Panchayati Raj on consulting them for 25 years plans for villages, and there are about 35 villages which have been worked upon. Our plans have been accepted, and there are 17 institutions in the country which are working on it, including NITs and IITs. The process is on. The government is recognizing, but we need to take share, our rightful share for this domain. वरना जैसे B.Des अलग हो गया है, अर्बन डिजाइन के कोर्सेज अलग हो गए हैं, आपके डोमेन में डायरेक्टली नहीं पढ़ते, वैसे ही ये विलेज का डोमेन, ये अर्बन विलेज का डोमेन भी कोई और थिंकिंग प्रोसेस के लोग लेकर के चले जाएंगे, and we will be limited to serving those few, and then we will feel कि we are not expanding as a profession and we are not growing as a profession. A concern which is hitting every institution, a concern which is hitting everyone in the country who's an architect or related to architectural institutions. So with this thought, with people at the center, I will run you through this exercise very quickly and then try to talk about what we are doing with Erasmus on VR and AI, of which your college is a part. So let me run you through what we are doing at UBC. So Urban Village Charitable Trust. So you will be surprised when I share this information with you that approximately 25 million people were relocated in India alone for dam projects. There are researchers which have documented that over 10,000 villages and villagers, 10,000 villages, that is about multiplied by an odd figure of 2,500, which is the number of people living in a village, were dislocated or shifted from their domain or the place where they were living and working alone in 1960s and 70s. As a result, what happened? As a result, they came, either they went to settle either in different villages or they went and settled in forests. उसके बाद क्या आया? उसके बाद आया Project Tiger, right? 1973 में Project Tiger create हुआ, बहुत सारे forest reserves create हुए, क्योंकि जिनको तुमने अपनी जगह से हटाया, तुमने या हमने या हमारे देश ने या हमारे processors ने अपनी जगह से हटाया, they started settling in forests. We destroyed ecology by our urban expansion or our infrastructure expansion, and as a result of which we had to come up with newer trends. Some which came and settled in urban villages and city went back continuously to other villages for social needs, for marriages, for functions, and so on and so forth, creating a circular migration. This was a good exchange of economics. You must understand that like we have circular economy, we have circular migration also. But ultimately, by the displacement of these villages, what was happening and what is happening? Laws of agriculture, ecology, vernacular, crafts, knowledge of indigenous systems, and of people who live in that way. Very recently, in an urban infrastructure project which I am studying on the Noida International Airport, relocation of 6 villages, there are people who have been relocated from villages to a proper urban settlement. They are very happy about it. But if you look at the list of their complaints, and they have got good houses, they have got bigger houses, they could not have dreamt of such a beautiful change from being a village to a resettlement colony. This has happened in the country for the first time after the RNR Act was enacted for this particular case. And the RNR Act came into position because of several cases which I have listed here, Nandigram, Singur, POSCO, and so many other cases, Mahanadi Goldfields, and so many other cases where the relocated masses could not find resettlement properly. Say, a lot of suicides happened, people were coming and filling the streets as beggars. There was mass exodus of people from those areas who were coming and living in cities. But that's not how development should happen. And that is not the intention of development, that is also not the definition of development. If that is the definition of development, then we need to rework that definition. Is there anybody here who can tell me the definition of development in our country? If you look at documents, it says building roads, bringing electricity, bringing sewer lines is development. But is that development? Is this development? Are we working on sustainable development with this principle? No, it contains ecology, it contains economies, it contains distances, it contains spaces, it contains people, it contains energy, and so on and so forth. But all these principles that we are discussing have not yet gone down into the definitions of development. So, a lot of rework has to happen. This picture I took from the same set of 6 villages. These are people who had broken down their houses and tried to salvage every brick to come to some other place and resettle and use the same amount of bricks because they wanted to recover their investments. Right? So, the city region, like the Pune city, consists of these kind of different regions. They consist of villages existing within the city, like Pune has got like Kiwale is there, Shaniwar Wada Peth area is there, and so on and so forth. And they have got historic mohallas, they have got monuments, they have got new suburbs and planned areas, surrounding villages which are around the city, and in the influence of the city, they have got slums, the areas under municipal corporation, land areas under development authorities. These are two different entities, you must understand. You are a planning institution. Forest and agricultural lands, rivers, ponds and lakes and railway lands. Of all these lands, only the monuments which are taken care either by conservation architects or by ASI, the new suburbs and planned areas, the areas under municipal corporation and development authority have people and systems and policies taking care of it. All other things are left open. We need to work on them and cantonments including. Cantonments just have a cantonment board, right? And there are areas to be worked on. So we need to work on them. This is the image of the emerging mega city of Delhi. And I'm giving you a picture of how villages are taken over, right? And how villages are leading to the formation of cities, how cities are coming closer, and how we are losing. What is the number that we are arriving at and talking about? So Delhi initially began with a handful of villages under the Delhi Development Authority. They had an administrative authority, they had a green land, they had forests and so on and so forth. But ultimately today Delhi stands in its administrative boundary with 362 urban villages. Don't worry, we are coming to a mathematical equation. The lecture will not be as boring as it is right now. But you must understand the basis of it, right? After Delhi came up Noida. Noida started with a very small number of 50 odd villages which were taken over, which became 71. Then Greater Noida, which came at 124. Then came Yeda. Now the funny part is, Delhi was a development authority, as a development authority was doing housing. Noida came up as an industrial development authority कि हमें इंडस्ट्री लगाना है तो एक डेवलपमेंट अथॉरिटी बनाने दो, हमको विलेजेस दो, उनका जमीन दो, उनका एग्रीकल्चरल लैंड हमने खरीदा, उनको कुछ कंपेंसेशन आज दिया, कुछ कल कुछ परसों, इसको एग्लोमरेट करके हमने नोएडा बनाया. नोएडा became very successful. ग्रेटर नोएडा बन गया कि नोएडा में पूरा बसा नहीं है, लेकिन ग्रेटर नोएडा बन गया. उसके बाद एक एक्सप्रेसवे बना which connected Delhi to Agra. And then came the Yamuna Expressway Industrial Development Authority. Why? The logic was that expressway बन गया है तो 10 किलोमीटर इधर 10 किलोमीटर उधर जितने गांव पड़ रहे हैं दिल्ली से आगरा तक सबका लैंड लेकर के हम अर्बनाइज करेंगे. अभी अर्बनाइजेशन के नाम पे लाइक Sir was speaking in the morning, Mr. Jha was speaking in the morning about skyscrapers not occupied. इसी तरीके से यहाँ पे immense amount of urbanization has happened, where buildings are not occupied. What this host urbanization, this host development is already destroying so much of agriculture, is converting people into thinking that land is about money. But land is entirely not about money. We need to think and rethink the values of land. So ultimately we have 1,149 villages in the phase 2 of YEDA, and we have more villages taken up in the name of GNDIR, which is Ghaziabad, Noida, Dadri Investment Region, and Greater Bulandshahr. 80 villages are coming up there, and 80 more have been recently added for the Greater Noida Authority. So we are talking about a mega city which is already in progress, and such mega cities are happening in a lot of regions in Delhi. One is happening here in Mumbai and Pune, where I wish to research with your help. We went from this understanding to the understanding of an agro-urbanization grid. So like in Pune, let me take you to the grid first. I've just shown the case of Chandigarh, right? You know, Corbusier designed Chandigarh, and there were almost 25 villages which were eradicated from the center of Chandigarh to accommodate the grid which Corbusier was creating. No document is there except for writings of people. What we did was that we took details of a few cities in India: Delhi, Ahmedabad, Lucknow, Noida, Chandigarh, Amravati, Yeda, and Greater Noida. And we tried to use GIS to map distances between all these villages. You know, we put all the distances on paper and tried to arrive at an average distance. The mean distance between all the villages, like what you see in the second last column, is the mean distance between villages in terms of kilometers, is something which is corresponding to the walkable distance, walkable half an hour's distance in between one settlement to the other, which was the dominant reason for development of villages in the Indian geography. So when you look at the geography of our country, then before urbanization, we had a network of villages happening all through. People were walking, and people were walking from one settlement to the other. There were facilities, there were exchange of goods, everything was happening from one location to the other on NMT, non-motorized transportation. So when you are talking about green, when you are talking about energy, when you are talking about sustainable development, when you are talking about ecology, you are talking about NMT, you are talking about circularity, you are talking about so many other things parallel to it. So then what we did was that we constructed a hypothetical model of a city wherein we said that if the city has a village of the size of X by X, and we divide the complete city into X number of villages. You know, if a city has X number of villages, and we divide its total area, and we put the center of the village on the dot, that is here, then the distance between one dot, that is the center of one village, because around one village is what? It's an agricultural region, right? Settlement है, खेत है, फिर दूसरे village का खेत है, फिर उसके बाद उसके center में उसका settlement है. When we map these distances, then we get root 2x as the distance in between the center to center of two villages. This experiment has been also done on London, New York, apart from the cities that we had mentioned, you know, and we find this distance to be consistent. The distance that is coming in the form of a red square, that is the root 2x, is actually the planning distance of the highest, biggest patch of empty land that any development authority would have used for construction of its infrastructural projects. There is a logic to the existence of villages, but when you look at the plan of Chandigarh, or when you look at your cities, or when you look at any city for that matters, the cultural center of those villages, of those cities, are their villages, but the planning does not start from villages. There is no planning which is starting from villages. You don't move out from the village. Villages are there, urban villages are there, they are providing all sorts of market situations, market conditions, infrastructure and properties for people, but our planning is not starting from there. So there is a model possibility where it can start. This particular distance is what we call as the agro-urbanization grid. And in return, in this planning process, like the planning process of Chandigarh, where villages are eradicated, what cities are doing to the existing urban villages are that they are covering them, take them up or restricting them up by either forest covers, backsides of buildings, water bodies, roads on all sides, or roads on some places, and they are constricting their access and approach because it's looked at as blind. It's looked at as something which should not be a part of the city. Whereas all your workforce, all your labor, all your infrastructure, all your affordability is because people living in these conditions are servicing your houses, your economies, working on your projects, and even in your colleges. So you must understand that there is a big opportunity to work on these areas, not just for these people, but also because nobody is working on them right now. And if architecture, or if within architecture we start working on them, then it becomes a very, very meaty process for us because there is no dearth of the amount of work which would be there for architects. So the formation of Urban Village Charitable Trust, which is a research repository, started in 2015 in a design studio where we started working on a urban village of Bhangel. I am a heritage architect, a conservation architect. So when I visited Bhangel with my students in a studio, so I realized that all cul-de-sacs, courtyard houses, gated colonies, clusters, water bodies, ecologies, everything existed inside that village, just without the stamp of it being a heritage area. That is when we realized that this was a people's heritage area. Although the experiment began much earlier in 1993-94, when as a student of heritage conservation, the whole batch got together and submitted the first master plan for Mehrauli to the Delhi Development Authority along with our professor, Professor Nalini Thakur. Nothing has yet been done, and we don't hope architectural or organized systems to understand what has to be done to urban village areas or to areas which are a mixed identity of heritage, a mixture of planning, and which lack clarity, a clarity which can be continued in the form of a uniform document of right and wrongs, dealing with grey or dealing with the kind of designs that Krishnamurti was doing is not simple. So similar is the case with these situations. Their drawings cannot be made, and here also drawings cannot be made. You have to get into it and start solving their problems one by one. And there have been many barefoot architects. Like we have got quite a few of these barefoot architects in Delhi who have got recognized and awarded because they have started walking into these villages. Even Geeta Balakrishnan talks about walking. Why is she walking the country? Is she just walking for the fun of walking? No. She's trying to connect the ideology of architecture. She's trying to make a presence of architecture while she also talks about it to villagers, and also she comes back and she shares that information. So there is a lot of work which is happening directly, indirectly by people in different areas to connect the country to the mainstream of education and knowledge systems. Now, we are very happy to have Dr. Gauri Shivurkar as a part of our founders since 2015, and these are some other members. You may not be knowing them, all individuals, but they are all professors and professionals from CEPT, from MNIT, from CU, from SPA, Bhopal. Devi was the head of building cell in Intact, and we all got together to formulate it in 2015. And we are connected to two international universities, the University of Navarra and the Thammasat University. Apart from some Indian universities with whom we have an MOU, and we are trying to create a research grid, and we are in consensus with the Council of Architecture that there has to be a research program which addresses all these areas, and we are trying to come up with a urban research cell on the research grid at a national scale. where I seek your participation, and you must also lend some amount of energy to these researches. We are, it's not at the time of class, continue, don't worry. So, we are right now working on envisioning brownfield development. Do you understand brownfield development? Do you understand greenfield development? What is greenfield development? खाली खेत में प्रोजेक्ट बना दो तो ग्रीनफील्ड डेवलपमेंट हो जाता है कि इकोलॉजिकली करेक्ट प्रोजेक्ट ग्रीनफील्ड डेवलपमेंट होता है? खाली खेत में बना दो ना बिल्डिंग, वो ग्रीनफील्ड है ना, ठीक है? तो अपने शहर का इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोवाइड करने के लिए, अपने शहर की जरूरतें प्रोवाइड करने के लिए हम दिन प्रतिदिन खाली खेत में घर बना रहे हैं, खाली खेत में शहर को एक्सपैंड कर रहे हैं, उसको कहते हैं ग्रीन फील्ड डेवलपमेंट। और जो हिस्सा बसा हुआ है शहर के अंदर, उसको हम हैंडल करना जानते ही नहीं है, तो उसमें कोई सस्टेनेबिलिटी की बात है? बिल्कुल भी नहीं, right? So that is why we are working on developing and writing a green field policy for India. Green field policy is very important, not just for India but for Southeast Asia, where there is a cultural continuum. जैसे यूरोप ने स्काईक्रेपर्स को अडॉप्ट नहीं किया, यूएस एक नई जमीन थी, खाली जमीन थी, कनाडा ने अपने जो लोकल्स थे, जो लोकल ट्राइब्स वहां पे रह रहे थे, सबको मार करके अपना नया देश बना लिया। वैसे इंडिया में जहाँ पे कि इंसान के होने की इज्जत है, हम इंसान को मार नहीं सकता है, वहां पे उनको भी सही करके चलेंगे तो हमारे शहर भी अच्छे हो जाएंगे। हमारे शहर के वो हिस्से जहाँ पे कि पहले से दूसरे या कम क्षमता के लोग रह रहे हैं, who are less educated, less capable, not able to handle themselves, but they are equal to us in terms of birth, in terms of right, in terms of being an Indian national. We as a profession need to look into it, right? Similarly, to understand inclusivity, we need to understand socio-spatial inclusion and exclusion. What is socio-spatial inclusion or exclusion? मान लो मैं एक बड़े घर में रहता हूँ और तुम एक बहुत छोटे से घर में रहते हो। मेरे घर में जिम है, तुम्हारे घर में जिम नहीं है। मेरे घर में टेबल टेनिस है, टीवी है, वीडियो है, काम करने का कंफर्ट है, 4 नौकरशाही लगे हुए, तुम्हारे पास है नहीं तो। या मेरे घर के बगल में स्विमिंग पूल है, चलो घर में नहीं है, घर के बगल में स्विमिंग पूल है, तुम्हारे घर के बगल में भी नहीं है, 10 किलोमीटर दूर स्कूल है, मेरे घर से वॉकिंग डिस्टेंस पे स्कूल है। दिस इज स्पेशल डिसइंक्लूजन। स्पेशल इक्वालिटी होती है, स्पेस की इक्वालिटी, राइट टू क्लीनलीनेस है, राइट टू सैनिटेशन है, राइट टू गुड एयर है, राइट टू सेफ लाइफ है, राइट टू दैट इक्विटेबल स्पेस है वेयर आई कैन live and sleep properly, which these communities do not have, which we have to either accept and adopt or we have to alter. I will give you an example. जो ऑर्गेनाइज सेक्टर के घर हैं सिटी डेवलपमेंट में, उनमें लोन मिलता है, ठीक है ना, उसमें बैंक्स आ सकते हैं जो गवर्नमेंट अप्रूव नक्शे हैं, लेकिन विलेजेस के प्रॉपर्टीज में ना तो लोन मिलता है, ना ही उनको नेशनल इकोनॉमिक्स का पार्ट माना जाता है, बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली इट इज मोनेटाइजेशन, और उसमें लैंड कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स और पार्सल साइजेस इतने छोटे हैं कि उसको हम इंटीग्रेट कर ही नहीं सकते। दैट इज व्हाई reintegrating them and pulling them into the national economics would change the perspective of our national built economy by itself. Our GDP is going to change if we accept them. मैप 1 नाम के मैप्स बने हैं दिल्ली में और नेशन वाइड पे बन रहे हैं, GIS बेस्ड मैप्स हैं, जिसमें भी विलेजेस और अर्बन विलेजेस के सिर्फ आउटलाइन बनाए गए हैं, उसके अंदर के रोड के डिटेल भी नहीं है, लीव असाइड प्रॉपर्टी आउटलाइंस। स्वामित्व अभी शुरू हुआ है, जिसमें कि हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर का एम्फेसिस है कि विलेज में एक एक प्रॉपर्टी की आउटलाइन रीडिफाइन हो, और इस बात के डेटा तो छोड़ो, ये हमारे किसी थीसिस प्रोजेक्ट में, ये हमारे किसी डिसर्टेशन में, ये हमारे किसी मास्टर्स के थीसिस में भी नहीं आता है। We are not interested as a field or branch of architects, because all that we are thinking is पैसा, बड़ा आदमी, बड़ी गाड़ी, and so on and so forth. Success, definitions, so-called protocol definitions, or so proto-definitions of success. We are not aggressive researchers, we are not thinkers. We need to think, we need to research, and rework our future fields. slide, I'll leave this slide because it's quite overdone. I'll leave this slide also because I have sympathy for you. I'll leave this slide also, I'll leave this also, and come to this point wherein what I will tell you is that what we have been talking in terms of urban villages being infrastructure to cities, right, was accepted by T20, G20, 2022 in the Indonesian presidency, and our voice has been put forth in the form of a communique in the Indian presidency, right? उसके बाद हमको लिखने की इतनी opportunity नहीं मिली because our outlines and our abstracts were rejected because it was quite a extension, and they said that you have already written, what more will you write? I said, okay, we'll do some more different experiments. So right now, after doing a few, I mean, there are a lot more books which I could not put up here. These are some of the ones which we have produced. We have gone down to top villages and urban villages on VR and AI, of which you all are part. But and I must tell you that the rating that Symbiosis Skills University, Professional University got was a very high rating because most of you are experimenting, and in the process where you filled in your forms, you mentioned that you are using VR otherwise also in different capacities. So we are working on it with a lot of expectation that you all will integrate information. Now, let me clarify why is it important to talk to talk urban villages or village problems or informalities on VR and AI. जैसे पॉवर्टी है, ठीक है? पॉवर्टी को पेंटर्स ने अगर ब्यूटी को पेंट किया है, तो पॉवर्टी को भी पेंट किया है, क्रूएल्टी को भी पेंट किया है, वॉर्स को भी पेंट किया है। ऐसे ही ये मीडियम की बात है ना? जब तक एक आर्गुमेंट एक मीडियम से दूसरे मीडियम में नहीं जाएगा, तब तक वो आर्गुमेंट जरूरी नहीं समझा जाएगा। As it is, there is such a big divide between the world of knowledge systems and the world of human way of social living. The world which belongs to them, and your world which is capitalizing on knowledge, which is capitalizing on research done over ages, and so on and so forth. So, there is a big boundary. If we do not talk about them, then there is difficulty. I must also tell you that internationally, there are innumerable researches which are happening on the use of VR and AI on urban informalities. We are lagging so far behind that soon they will come to us and they will say that तुम्हारे इन informalities का solution मेरे पास है और ये रहा process और इस चीज को solve करो, and we will just be following them. Looking at the example of Krishnamurti, who has taken up who had the strength to take up the rigor of setting up the systems. On the face of it, the output looks so glossy, so beautiful. बहुत अच्छा output दिखता है, लेकिन उस आदमी तक पहुंचने की कोशिश करो जिसने कि उसको जिंदगी लगा करके सेटअप किया। वो अभी मैं उससे बात कर रहा था, वो हर प्रोसेस में सारे प्रॉफिट से एक मशीन खरीदना था, फिर प्रोसेस में प्रॉफिट आता है, फिर मशीन खरीद, फिर प्रोसेस में प्रॉफिट आता है, पेड इन्वेंट्री, मटेरियल इन्वेंट्री, हार्डवेयर इन्वेंट्री, सप्लायर्स, आउटस्टैंडिंग. That process is not simple at all. What appears to you is just design, कर लिया Rhino में, Grasshopper में, and so on and so forth. But if you look at the story of the person who has been doing it, it's a lot of rigor. And that rigor is what is required in problem solving and expanding the application of architecture to the Indian national scenario. And that is where I bring this VR and AI experiment to you. These are all representative teachers from different institutions. Professor Shahid Rahman is representing your institution, and these are some of the professors who are continuously teaching. I urge you all to do a very good job at VR and AI and try otherwise also in other courses. Now that you have two VR lenses, one from COA and one from the University of Nevada through an Erasmus fund, to use VR and AI for detailing and rethinking and processing design. So this is where I come, and I'm very thankful to Dr. Swati Mazumdar and Dr. Gauri Shiurkar and all of you to be hearing this whole process, which is very dulling. At times it becomes very unnerving because the discussion on people is not a simple discussion. And you must understand that if you do not think people, then you lose the game of growth of numbers. You keep serving those few 5%, 2.5%, 10% in the national economy who will keep on taking your money away from you. You have to think people, you have to work for masses, and you have to find solutions for them to enable the profession of architecture to be recognized through its application and ownership of house as their domain, building as their domain. Thank you so much. Now you can start. Are there any questions? तुम लोगों ने people कभी सोचा है? सिर्फ space सोचा, material सोचा, cost सोचा, processes कभी सोचा है? जो urbanization के process के बारे में जहाँ साहब सवेरे बात कर रहे थे, right? जो कृष्णमूर्ति ने बात की, या जो उसके पहले बात हो रही थी, ecology जो जेरी एंथनी बात कर रहे थे, तो उस सारे प्रोसेस में जेरी एंथनी के प्रोसेस में अर्बनाइजेशन और इकोनॉमिक्स है, राइट? इकोलॉजी है, लेकिन पीपल कहाँ है? पीपल के बारे में सोचना शुरू करना पड़ेगा, इंडिविजुअल को चेंज करना होगा। इंडिविजुअल थिंकिंग, ये मत सोचो कि तुम्हारा थिंकिंग प्रोसेस जो मास कम्युनिटी का थिंकिंग है ना, उससे अलग है। यू आर अ पार्ट ऑफ दैट थिंकिंग प्रोसेस। आज जो है यहाँ पे जितने लोग हैं उसमें से एक आदमी जो है, जैसे बहुत सारे वो होते हैं ना जंगल में बंदर, ठीक है, तो ऐसे एक बंदर चीखने लगता है, लड़ने लगता है ना, यू हैव सीन दिस काइंड ऑफ प्रोसेस, राइट? मॉब मेंटालिटी देखते हो कि आज मारकाट शुरू हुई तो सब लोग लड़ने लगे, एक ने दूसरे को मारा, दूसरे ने तीसरे को मारा। दैट्स हाउ मॉब्स हैपन। वी आर कनेक्टेड मेंटली समवेयर, आवर मेंटल बॉडीज आर कनेक्टेड। Animals are group souls, right? Human beings individualize from that animal consciousness, but at some level we are connected. तुम लोग सिल्वर मेथड ऑफ माइंड कंट्रोल पढ़ते होगे, अल्फा स्टेट पढ़ते होगे, मैट्रिक्स देखा होगा, थर्ड लेवल ऑफ स्लीप में जाकर के थॉट इंसेप्शन के बारे में देखा होगा। Now somewhere your ideation is connected to the community ideation, you know, the total ideation. And unless you reach that ideation, you will not be able to satisfy your urge to create better build form, better architecture, and benefit people. Try and do a small experiment. My students have done it. I did not showcase it here. After doing urban village research, we painted one square and we got a drawing project and drawing equipment for some village children and community, and we sat down with them and talked to them. Even this small gesture was very satisfying because we felt that we could do something. Pushing reports, sending documents is not leading anywhere. It has to be actionable. Architecture has to step out of its boundaries. इस बात को समझना पड़ेगा. Otherwise, somebody else will come. Some other branch of knowledge will come, है ना? And say we are village actor or something like that instead of architects. And they will say that we know how to do villages because architects don't know how to do villages. समझ रहे हो? So you have to get activated and get into it, dirty your hands into it, and improve the situation. Any other questions? Nobody is asking questions, so I thought I'll raise an argument myself. Yes, definitely. It's already there in the college, and there are a group of students who are working on VR and AI. We will also be having the next level of program, which will be the university program with University of Nevada and through the same Erasmus funds again in August, because this year we have to have 2 sessions. So although we will be looking for newer colleges, because COA also thinks that this capacity building should be spread evenly across the Indian geography. But in case if you have a good output this time, then definitely you can participate in the coming year also, and come up with a very good output. गरीब का घर बनाओगे, रिक्शे वाले का घर बनाओगे, नहीं बनाओगे? बहुत पैसा
serve for enlightening us about the development of urban villages and how it has evolved throughout the years. Thus, we conclude Day 2, Session 2 of the International Symposium on the Future of Skills in Architecture, Design and Planning. I would like to request all the students to proceed to the School of Architecture N404 for poster presentations and the first year Section A for the various activities. Requesting the audience to remain seated till the dignitaries leave the auditorium. Thank you all for joining us for today's event.